Good morning. Today's Bible reading comes from 2 Kings 9 through 12. Okay. I'll use my glasses today. One day, Elisha the prophet ordered a member of the guild of prophets, "Get yourself ready. Take a flask of oil and go to Ramoth Gilead. Look for Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi. When you find him, get him away from his companions and take him back. Take him to a back room. Take your flask of oil and pour it over his head and say, God's word. I anoint you king over Israel. Then open the door and get out of there as fast as you can. Don't wait around." The young prophet went to Ramoth Gilead. On arrival, he found the army of officers all sitting around. He said, "I have a matter of business with you, officer." Jehu said, "Which one of us?" "With you, officer." He got up and went inside the building. The young prophet poured the oil on his head and said, "God's word, the God of Israel. I've anointed you to be king over the people of God, over Israel. Your assignment is to attack the regime of Ahab, your master. I am avenging the massacre of my servants, the prophets. Yes, the Jezebel massacre of all the prophets of God. The entire line of Ahab is doomed. I'm wiping out the entire bunch of that sad lot. I'll see to it that the family of Ahab experiences the same fate as the family of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and the family of Baasha, son of Ahijah. As for Jezebel, the dogs will eat her carcass in the open fields of Jezreel. No burial for her." Then he opened the door and made a run for it. Jehu went back out to his master's officers. They asked, "Is everything all right? What did that crazy fool want with you?" He said, "You know that kind of man, all talk." "That's a lie," they said. "Tell us what's going on." He said, "He told me this and this and this. In effect, God's word, I anoint you king of Israel." They sprang into action. Each man grabbed his robe. They piled them. They piled them at the top of the steps for a makeshift throne. Then they blew the trumpet and declared, "Jehu is king." That ignited the conspiracy of Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi, against Joram. Meanwhile, Joram and the entire army were defending Ramoth Gilead against Hazael, king of Aram, except that Joram had pulled back to Jezreel to convalesce from the injuries he got from the Arameans in the battle with Hazael, king of Aram. Jehu said, "If you really want me as king, don't let anyone sneak out of the city and blab the news in Jezreel." Then Jehu mounted a chariot and rode to Jezreel, where Joram was in bed resting. King Ahaziah of Judah had come down to visit Joram. A sentry standing duty on the watchtower in Jezreel saw the company of Jehu arrive. He said, "I see a band of men." Joram said, "Get a horseman and send him out to meet them and inquire, is anything wrong?" The horseman rode out to meet Jehu and said, "The king wants to know if there's anything wrong." Jehu said, "What's it to you whether things are right or wrong? Fall in behind me." The sentry said, "The messenger reached them, but he's not returning." The king then sent a second horseman. When he reached them, he said, "The king wants to know if there's anything wrong." Jehu said, "What's it to you whether things are right or wrong? Fall in behind me." The sentry said, "The messenger reached them, but he's not returning." "The driving is like the driving of Jehu, son of Nimshi. Crazy." Joram ordered, "Get my chariot ready." They hitched up his chariot. Joram king of Israel and Ahaziah king of Judah, each in his own chariot, drove out to meet Jehu. They met in the field of Naboth of Jezreel. When Joram saw Jehu, he called out, "Good day, Jehu." Jehu answered, "What's good about it? How can there be anything good about it as long as the promiscuous whoring and sorceries of your mother, Jezebel, pollute the country?" Joram wheeled his chariot around and fled, yelling to Ahaziah, "It's a trap, Ahaziah." Jehu pulled out his bow and released an arrow. It hit Joram between the shoulder blades and went right through his heart. He slumped to his knees in his chariot. Jehu ordered Bidkar, his lieutenant, "Quick, throw him into the field of Naboth of Jezreel. Remember when you and I were driving our chariots behind Ahab, his father?" That's when God pronounced this doom upon him. "As surely as I saw the blood of murdered Naboth and his sons yesterday, you'll pay for it on this exact piece of ground." God's word. So take him and throw him out in the field. God's instructions carried out to the letter. Ahaziah, king of Judah, saw what was going on and made his escape on the road toward Beth Hagan. Jehu chased him, yelling out, "Get him too." Jehu's troops shot and wounded him in his chariot on the hill up to Gur, near Ibleam. He was able to make it as far as Megiddo. There he died. His aides drove on to Jerusalem. They buried him in the family plot in the city of David. In the 11th year of the reign of Joram, son of Ahab, Ahaziah had become king of Judah. When Jezebel heard that Jehu had arrived in Jezreel, she made herself up, put on eyeshadow and arranged her hair, and posed seductively at the window. When Jehu came through the city gate, she called down, "So how are things, Zimri, you dashing king killer?" Sure, she blinked her eyelashes. Jehu looked up at the window and called, "Is there anybody up there on my side?" 2 or 3 palace eunuchs looked out. He ordered, "Throw her down." They threw her out the window. Her blood splattered the wall and the horses, and Jehu trampled her under his horse's hooves. Then Jehu went inside and ate his lunch. During lunch, he gave orders, "Take care of that damned woman. Give her a decent burial. She is, after all, a king's daughter." They went out to bury her, but there was nothing left of her but skull, feet, and hands. They came back and told Jehu. He said, "It's God's word, the word spoken by Elijah, the Tishbite. In the field of Jezreel, dogs will eat Jezebel. The body of Jezebel will be like dog droppings on the ground in Jezreel. Old friends and lovers will say, 'I wonder, is this Jezebel?'" Ahab had 70 sons still living in Samaria. Jehu wrote letters addressed to the officers of Jezreel, the city elders, and those in charge of Ahab's sons, and posted them to Samaria. The letters read, "This letter is fair warning. You're in charge of your master's children, chariots, horses, fortifications, and weapons. Pick the best and most capable of your master's sons and put him on the throne. Prepare to fight for your master's position." They were absolutely terrified at the letter. They said, "2 kings have already been wiped out by him. What hope do we have?" So they sent the warden of the palace, the mayor of the city, the elders, and the guardians to Jehu with this message: "We are your servants. Whatever you say, we'll do. We're not making anyone king here. You're in charge. Do what you think best." Then Jehu wrote a second letter. "If you are on my side and are willing to follow my orders, here's what you do. Decapitate the sons of your master and bring the heads to me by this time tomorrow in Jezreel." The king's sons numbered 70. The leaders of the city had taken responsibility for them. When they got the letter, they took the king's sons and killed all 70. Then they put the heads in baskets and sent them to Jehu in Jezreel. A messenger reported to Jehu, "They've delivered the heads of the king's sons." He said, "Stack them in 2 piles at the city gate until morning." In the morning, Jehu came out, stood before the people, and addressed them formally. "Do you realize that this very day you are participants in God's righteous workings? True, I am the one who conspired against my master and assassinated him. But who do you suppose is responsible for this pile of skulls? Know this for certain. Not a single syllable that God spoke in judgment on the family of Ahab is canceled. You're seeing it with your own eyes. God doing what through Elijah he said he'd do." Then Jehu proceeded to kill everyone who had anything to do with Ahab's family. In Jezreel, leaders, friends, priests, he wiped out the entire lot. That done, he brushed himself off and set out for Samaria. Along the way at Beth Eked, binding house of the shepherds, he met up with some relatives of Ahaziah, king of Judah. Jehu said, "Who are you?" They said, "We are relatives of Ahaziah. We've come down to a reunion of the royal family." "Grab them," ordered Jehu. They were taken and then massacred at the well of Beth Eked, 42 of them, no survivors. He went on from there and came upon Jehonadab, the Rechabite, who was on his way to meet him. Greeting him, he said, "Are we together and of one mind in this?" Jehonadab said, "We are. Count on me." "Then give me your hand," said Jehu. They shook hands on it, and Jehonadab stepped up into the chariot with Jehu. "Come along with me," said Jehu, "and witness my zeal for God." Together they proceeded in the chariot. When they arrived in Samaria, Jehu massacred everyone left in Samaria who was in any way connected to Ahab, a mass execution, just as God had told Elijah. Next, Jehu got all the people together and addressed them. Ahab served Baal small time. Jehu will serve him big time. Get all the prophets of Baal here, everyone who served him, all his priests. Get everyone here, don't leave anyone out. I have a great sacrifice to offer Baal. If you don't show up, you won't live to tell about it. Jehu was lying, of course. He planned to destroy all the worshippers of Baal. Jehu ordered to make preparation for a holy convocation for Baal. They did and posted the date. Jehu then summoned everyone in Israel. They came in droves, every worshipper of Baal in the country. Nobody stayed home. They came and packed the temple of Baal to capacity. Jehu directed the keeper of the wardrobe, "Get robes for all the servants of Baal." He brought out their robes. Jehu and Jehonadab the Rechabite now entered the temple of Baal and said, "Double check and make sure that there are no worshippers of God in here. Only Baal worshippers are allowed." Then they launched the worship, making the sacrifices and burnt offerings. Meanwhile, Jehu had stationed 80 men outside with orders, "Don't let a single person escape. If you do, it's your life for his life." When Jehu had finished with the sacrificial solemnities, he signaled to the officers and guards, "Enter and kill. No survivors." And the bloody slaughter began. The officers and guards threw the corpses outside and cleared the way to enter the inner shrine of Baal. They hauled out the sacred phallic stone from the temple of Baal and pulverized it. They smashed the Baal altars and tore down the Baal temple. It had been a public toilet. It's been a public toilet ever since. And that's the story of Jehu's wasting of Baal in Israel. But for all that, Jehu didn't turn back from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, the sins that had dragged Israel into a life of sin. The golden calves in Bethel and Dan stayed. God commended Jehu. You did well to do what I saw was best. You did what I ordered against the family of Ahab. As reward, your sons will occupy the throne of Israel for 4 generations. Even then, though, Jehu wasn't careful to walk in God's ways and honor the God of Israel from an undivided heart. He didn't turn back from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who led Israel into a life of sin. It was about this time that God began to shrink Israel. Hazael hacked away at the borders of Israel, from the Jordan to the east, all the territory of Gilead, Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh, from Aroer near the brook Arnon, in effect, all Gilead and Bashan. The rest of the life and times of Jehu, his accomplishments and fame are written in the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. Jehu died and was buried in the family plot in Samaria. His son Jehoahaz was the next king. Jehu ruled Israel from Samaria for 28 years. Athaliah was the mother of Ahaziah. When she saw that her son was dead, she took over. She began by massacring the entire royal family. But Jehosheba, daughter of King Jehoram and sister of Ahaziah, took Ahaziah's son Joash and kidnapped him from among the king's sons, slated for slaughter. She hid him and his nurse in a private room away from Athaliah. He didn't get killed. He was there with her hidden away for 6 years in the temple of God. Athaliah, oblivious to his existence, ruled the country. In the 7th year, Jehoiada sent for the captains of the bodyguards and the palace security force. They met him in the temple of God. He made a covenant with them, swore them to secrecy, and only then showed them the young prince. Then he commanded them, "These are your instructions. Those of you who come on duty on the Sabbath and guard the palace, and those of you who go off duty on the Sabbath and guard the temple of God, are to join forces at the time of the changing of the guard and form a ring around the young king. Weapons at the ready. Kill anyone who tries to break through your ranks. Your job is to stay with the king at all times and places, coming and going." The captains obeyed the orders of Jehoiada the priest. Each took his men, those who came on duty on the Sabbath and those who went off duty on the Sabbath, and presented them to Jehoiada the priest. And I may not be pronouncing that correctly. I'll look it up. The priest, armed with the officers with spears and shields, originally belonging to King David, stored in the temple of God. Well armed, the guards took up their assigned positions for protecting the king, from one end of the temple to the other, surrounding both altar and temple. Then the priest brought the prince into view, crowned him, handed him the scroll of God's covenant, and made him king. As they anointed him, everyone applauded and shouted, "Long live the king!" Athaliah heard the shouting of the guards and people and came to the crowd gathered at the temple of God. Astonished, she saw the king standing beside the throne, flanked by the captains and heralds, with everyone beside themselves with joy. Sorry, had a bit of a coughing fit there. With everybody besides themselves with joy, trumpets blaring. Athaliah ripped her robes in dismay and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" Jehoiada, the priest, ordered the military officers, "Drag her outside and kill anyone who tries to follow her." The priest had said, "Don't kill her inside the temple of God." So they dragged her out to the palace's horse corral. There they killed her. Jehoiada now made a covenant between God and the king and people. They were God's people. Another covenant was made between the king and the people. The people poured into the temple of Baal and tore it down, smashing altar and images to smithereens. They killed Mattan the priest in front of the altar. Jehoiada then stationed sentries at the temple of God. He arranged for the officers of the bodyguard and the palace security, along with the people themselves, to escort the king down from the temple of God through the gate of guards and into the palace. There he sat on the royal throne. Everyone celebrated the event, and the city was safe and undisturbed. They had killed Athaliah with the royal sword. Joash was 7 years old when he became king. In the 7th year of Jehu, Joash began his kingly rule. He was king for 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Gazelle. She was from Beersheba. Taught and trained by Jehoiada, the priest, Joash did what pleased God for as long as he lived. Even so, he didn't get rid of the sacred fertility shrines. People still frequented them, sacrificing and burning incense. Joash instructed the priest, "Take the money that is brought into the temple of God for holy offerings, both mandatory offerings and free will offerings, and keeping a careful accounting, use them to renovate the temple wherever it has fallen into disrepair." By the 23rd year of Joash's rule, the priest hadn't done one thing. The temple was as dilapidated as ever. King Joash called Jehoiada the priest and the company of priests and said, "Why haven't you renovated this sorry-looking temple? You are forbidden to take any more money for temple repairs. From now on, hand over everything you get." The priest agreed not to take any more money or to be involved in the temple renovation. Then Jehoiada took a single chest and bored a hole in the lid and placed it to the right of the main entrance into the temple of God. All the offerings that were brought to the temple of God were placed in the chest by the priest who guarded the entrance. When they saw that a large sum of money had accumulated in the chest, the king's secretary and the chief priest would empty the chest and count the offerings. They would give the money accounted for to the managers of the temple project. They in turn would pay the carpenters, construction workers, masons, stone workers, and the buyers of timber and quarried stone for the repair and renovation of the temple of God. Any expenses connected with fixing up the temple. But none of the money brought into the temple of God was used for liturgical extras: silver chalices, candle snuffers, trumpets, various gold and silver vessels. It was given to the workmen to pay for the repairing God's temple, and no one even had to check on the men who handled the money given for the project. They were honest men. Offerings designated for compensation offerings and absolution offerings didn't go into the building project. Those went directly to the priest. Around this time, Hazael, king of Aram, ventured out and attacked Gath, and he captured it. Then he decided to try for Jerusalem. Joash, king of Judah, countered by gathering up all the sacred memorials, gifts dedicated for holy use by his ancestors, the kings of Judah, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, and Ahaziah. along with the holy memorials he himself had received, plus all the gold that he could find in the temple and palace storerooms, and sent it to Hazael, king of Aram. Appeased, Hazael went on his way and didn't bother Jerusalem. The rest of the life of times of Joash and all he did are written in the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. At the last of his palace, staff formed a conspiracy and assassinated Joash as he was strolling along the ramp of the fortified outside city wall. Josabad, son of Shemith, and Jehozabad, son of Shomer, were the assassins. And so Joash died and was buried in the family plot in the city of David. His son Amaziah was king after him. And that is it for today's Bible reading. That was kind of rough to get through. All right, I hope everybody has a great, blessed day. And remember, get in touch with God today. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.